What is up, everyone? Welcome to Rdy Brk. I am Brandon Brewer, and joining me, my right-hand man on the left-hand side, Zach Billings. Zach, what's up, my man?
Hey, what up? How's it going?
Let's go, man. We are Rdy Brk, and this is the show that comes to you every single week and talks about the biggest, hottest, juiciest stories, rumors, news all around the sports world. And we're coming to you this week with not really much to talk about because I can't really think of too many major earth-shattering things that have happened. Maybe Josh McDaniels going to the Raiders, something like that. What's Tebow up to?
Yeah, it's been a really slow, just whole entire week of sports. I mean, I personally have just been kind of waiting around, hoping that MLB gets their stuff together and we can watch some baseball. Because other than that, I haven't seen a single thing on my TV that's been exciting.
Yeah, that's that. There's not really been too much. There was some grouping of games that were played yesterday that I guess
Yeah,
a
like
lot of
a
people are talking about.
championship or something for
AFC, NFC
uh,
champion. Yeah, I think it's football related. So maybe we should talk about that.
football. So like you kick a ball into a goal and you run around the field.
Well, in one of the games in particular, the guy did kick the ball, but it went above the goal instead
Mhm.
of in the goal. So, but they counted it as 3 points. So I guess that's better.
Oh wow,
So once again, Evan McPherson comes through in the clutch for the Cincinnati Bengals and kicks the game tying and game winning field goal. Boy, am I proud of this guy.
that guy is something else, man. I told my buddy Anthony this, who is a Chiefs fan, and I told him, I was like, dude, this McPherson kid is like, you can almost already put him in the likes of Justin Tucker. I mean, those kind of names, because he's calling his shots, he's making kicks when everything is on the line, and that dude is just nailing it.
Absolutely. He's crushing it and he's giving kickers such a good name because he's got the swag, and I love that the Bengals keep posting that post. That's why you draft a kicker. That's why you do it. This right here is why you do it. Of course, Joe Burrow is leading the charge in his second year. The Bengals are going to the Super Bowl. Unheard of. I heard a rumor today that the Miami Dolphins tried to put together a package back in the 2020 draft time that they were going to trade all three of their first round draft picks plus more to move up from 5 to the number 1 overall so they could get Joe Burrow. Of course, the Bengals politely said, "Nah, we're good," and the rest is history. Joey B is in Cincinnati balling, and Tua has not been all that he's cracked up to have been. So it's crazy. It is what it is. That's the way that it works sometimes. Sometimes you know what you got when it's coming to you. Bengals 2 years ago had the worst football team in the league. Now they're going to the Super Bowl. What did you think of that game against the Kansas City Chiefs this week, Zach?
I was just completely shocked, and a lot of people, I think, expected that the Chiefs were going to run the score up pretty high, and that's what I basically predicted. I thought that the Bengals defense doesn't really have enough to keep up with the Chiefs offense, so Joe Burrow better be ready to, basically gunsling against Patrick Mahomes. And I think that first half was about as expected for the Chiefs. They did well, and a lot of things were clicking for them. But then the second half, it was a completely different ball game. I mean, it was almost like they just couldn't do it anymore. I got the sense from the defense that was the case. If you remember, it was pretty late in the game. Joe Burrow was scrambling, and I don't remember his name, but I think his number was 95. And I specifically texted my friend about it. I was like, dude, this guy sucks, because he basically had Joe Burrow wrapped up and couldn't bring him down. And man, they kind of fell apart right when they needed to hold together. And I get it. It's difficult to, do those types of things, win game after game at the buzzer beater type scenario. And I think maybe the Chiefs just kind of ran out of gas there at the end of that game. And I think you have to give hats off to Joe Burrow for being able to beat one of the perennial teams in the NFL, and I think everybody thought that the AFC was the Chiefs, conference for years to come, and that's clearly not the case. The Bills weren't able to top the Chiefs, but the Bengals sure were, and I think this kid going to the Super Bowl is amazing. Obviously, the Cincinnati market is relatively low. I'm sure they don't have very many bandwagon fans across the country, but this guy has exploded on the scene. He obviously their kicker is a huge just personality, and I think this is great for the sport because he was obviously a winner in college, and now he's able to replicate that in the NFL. And a lot of times with these number one quarterbacks, they just kind of flounder in the NFL. And I think it's really special when you get to see a guy excel at each level and grow and get better. And like you mentioned earlier, this is his second year in the league, coming off of knee surgery. This guy is doing things that are almost unspeakable.
Yeah, for all the Cowboy fans out there that were saying that Dak should get the comeback player of the year, I think we need to put that on pause real quick because put some respect on Joe Burrow's name as well. You mentioned the Bills, and I do want to go back and recap a little bit of what happened in this game. But the Bills are a pretty significant part of that because it was those same Kansas City Chiefs that in 13 seconds were able to tie the game against the Bills, force that into overtime, and then, of course, they won the coin toss, went down the field, and scored. But that 13 seconds, we all thought that the Bills were going to be there.
Yep.
And then fast forward to the AFC Championship game, and here come the Chiefs. They force overtime. Here we go again. They win the coin toss. You think, oh, this is going to be another replay of what we just saw last week. The internet was about to be on fire with everybody pissed off that the Chiefs once again skirted by on the weak NFL overtime rules. But in the same 13 seconds, Patrick Mahomes threw an interception, and then the Bengals were able to get a little drive going. Evan McPherson kicked the 30-yard field goal for the win. Boom. Kickers' lives matter. Yeah. It happened once again. I loved it.
That was a wild drive because I fully expected them to replicate what they were able to do. And it seemed like the Chiefs offense just couldn't bring that out yet again. They seemed very confused isn't the right word, but they just seemed just not on the same page like they were against the Bills. The Bills, whenever that 13-second drive happened, which wasn't even a 13-second drive, it was just like in the blink of an eye, they scored. Whenever they did that, everything was clicking and everyone was just in the zone, like they say. And against the Bengals, I think they were just kind of not there, not in the same way that they were against the Bills. And hats off to the Bengals for being able to do it because that was difficult. And that team is exceptional. Obviously they do have issues, but it's wild to think that the Bengals are in the Super Bowl. I don't think anyone could have predicted that.
No, I didn't see it coming. We talked about it weeks ago that they were good, but they were still missing a few things, mainly an offensive line, which did rear its head against the Titans when they gave up 9 sacks, but they did look much improved against the Chiefs. We'll see what happens against that pass rush going forward. But before we move on to the NFC side of things, Zach, I do have one other question. And I mean, this is something that it may get us shut down. We may get some serious backlash depending on how we answer this question. But I think it's safe to say that all comparisons between Patrick Mahomes and Tom Brady are put to bed. Tom Brady is notorious for winning the big game. Patrick Mahomes, he's seemingly a one and done type guy. So is it safer and a better comparison to say that Patrick Mahomes is the new Aaron Rodgers?
It's honestly looking that way. I think his offense is light years better than anything Aaron Rodgers has had. But you have to remember that Aaron Rodgers has had some decent offenses. Back whenever, he had a legitimate running back, he had Jordy Nelson, he had, several players that were pretty good, but I still think that this Chiefs offense with all the weapons they have is substantial. And that begs the question, then what is the problem? Because I don't think you can blame everything on the defense. I think they figured out a lot of things. Still not great, but I think we've seen that you don't need an amazing defense to win games. It helps, but the Bengals don't have an amazing defense. It's interesting because Patrick Mahomes came onto the field and came into, everyone's purview out of nowhere, seemingly, and had a lot of tricks up his sleeve, lit the world on fire, MVP, Super Bowl, all that stuff. And now it's almost like he's playing catch up. It's like he's trying to replicate the past success, and he so far hasn't been able to do it. It's going to be interesting to see this team moving forward, because at a certain point, I don't think they'll be able to keep all these weapons. Guys are going to want to get paid the big bucks, deservedly so. But this is what happens when teams have a lot of all-stars and those kind of guys. They want to get paid, and not everybody wants to go the Tom Brady route and take a pay cut so that you can keep a team together. Clearly, Patrick Mahomes doesn't want to do that because he broke 1 million records with his deal. So he's on the books for sure. Now, what do you do with all the other pieces? And can he keep this success going? Very interested to see that. I don't want to sound the alarm just yet, but it's getting interesting because, again, the Bengals beating them was a shocker. I think we kind of all assumed maybe that the Bills were the best chance to beat them, and that wasn't the case. So anything's possible now, I think.
Well, and if you remember, the Bengals beat them at the end of regular season as well.
Yep.
So the Bengals have their number, and that's going to be a team that they're going to have to face every year in the AFC for the foreseeable future. As long as Joey Burrow is out there slinging, they've got a shot. Now on the NFC side of things, we had a little bit of a different game, but it ultimately did come down to the very end on that one as well. It was a very close game. They're down toward the wire, but at one point it looked like the 49ers were in the driver's seat and were cruising to the Super Bowl. They had a double-digit lead in the fourth quarter, and then somehow, some way, Matt Stafford pulled up his jock strap and said, let's go out there and play some football. And they found Cooper Kupp, they found Odell Beckham, and they just marched down the field, and they ended up winning the game. Matt Stafford, all the way from the Detroit Lions, has made his way cross country to LA, and now he's leading a team to a Super Bowl. It makes me feel good because I said going into this season that he would have the best season of his entire career, and here he is in the doorsteps of the big game itself, and pretty good chance to win it. What do you think, Zach? What did you think of that game?
That was another interesting one. I wanted to give the nod to the Rams, but I also was completely shocked that the 49ers were there to begin with. So anything can happen there. I mean, if you can beat the Packers, why can't you beat the Rams? Plus, the 49ers had beat them X amount of times before. What was it, like 6 or 7?
7 in a row, I believe is what it was.
So the streak in my mind could have continued, although the Rams did have the better team on paper, and that turned out to be the case. Jimmy G looked good for a while, and then it kind of fell apart on him. I really don't know what the issue was there. Debo did suffer a sort of a, not injury per se, because he did come back, but he did get kind of banged up there. An interesting kind of breakdown from that team, I think, is basically what happened. I think the Rams have all of their bases covered, which is extremely valuable in these, big time game situations. I think they have a very good coaching staff. Obviously, Sean McVay as the head of that. Defense stacked. We all know that. Offense stacked, obviously. So on paper, I think the Rams should be a shoo-in. And I think that was the case. They ultimately were able to outperform the 49ers. And I think they made the right decisions when it mattered most. And I don't know, where the breakdown was exactly for the 49ers, but it kind of looked like Jimmy G just couldn't really get it going there at the end. And maybe they had figured him out by that point. So, yeah, it
And
was – go ahead.
it begs to question, Jimmy G, a guy that led the 49ers to the playoffs 2 years ago, got injured, led the 49ers to the NFC Championship game this year. Is he replaceable? Have we seen him play his last game as the quarterback of the San Francisco 49ers?
I think the 49ers are ready to trot out their new toy in Trey Lance, but I
think
think
so too.
I
It's
do
weird.
think I think that Jimmy will end up at it with another team. There's plenty of teams that could use him, but I think the 49ers are ready to move on.
His stock is at an all-time high right now.
Yeah.
It has to be. Leading a team to the NFC Championship game. So many teams out there are going to be looking for a new quarterback this offseason. The 49ers are going to sell when he's at the absolute highest and then bring in Trey Lance. But then are we going to see the same type of offense from the 49ers next year with Trey Lance under center? I don't think so. I think a lot of things will change. I think it'll look a lot different. So it's very confusing, very interesting to see what's going to happen all around the league this offseason, especially with the quarterback shuffle that is inevitable at this point. But before we move on too much about a potential huge cog in that quarterback shuffle that could be happening, has this been the best playoffs of all time?
In my recent memory, it has topped.
It's been great.
Topped them all, honestly. I mean, the last second game time decision type plays have been just outstanding. And even if it is just, a kicker doing his thing, it's still been very exciting.
Even if it's just a kicker doing his thing,
I still
just a kicker.
I still have my questions. I mean, I respect him. I get it, but I can't say it's the most exciting thing to see a guy boot a ball in between two yellow posts.
KLM.
Hey, they do. They do matter. I understand. I get it.
This is going to be the argument that we die on. We'll be on opposite sides of this hill. But yeah, I think it's been an absolute wonderful postseason. It's been, the Pats making the playoffs was great in my eyes, with the rookie quarterback and seeing the progress that they made from last year. Whenever they didn't make the playoffs, they were a sub 500 team. To this year, the Pats even getting in was great. The Tennessee Titans somehow being a 1 seed after everything that they suffered and then losing in the first round, huge upset. The Bengals and they've just been phenomenal this entire time. The Cinderella Bengals have been great to watch, and that's become America's favorite team this postseason. Everybody online, everybody in the Rdy Brk group, they're cheering for the Bengals. I think I've been telling people, like, going into this past weekend, I want it to be the Bengals and the Rams in the Super Bowl, but I always thought in the back of my mind it would be the Chiefs and the Rams. But I am ecstatic knowing what it is. It's been great. And then on the other side of things, like, we had the greatest of all time get knocked off. Mm-hmm. We had Aaron Rodgers get knocked out early. So it's like, wait, for the first time in the foreseeable future or foreseeable past, we don't have a Super Bowl featuring Patrick Mahomes or Tom Brady. We've been doing our show, Zach, since 2018?
Yep.
And since then, we have not had a Super Bowl that didn't have one of those guys in it. Here we are in 2022, and we have Joe Burrow versus Matt Stafford as the quarterback showcased in the Super Bowl. You know what? Instead of Super Bowl, I think this year it should be rebranded the Superb Bowl, because this year's Super Bowl is going to be one of the best ever, and it's going to have one of the best halftime shows ever.
Oh, man.
And I think that it's going to go down as one of the most watched Super Bowls of all time. So this year, it will be the Superb Bowl.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think a lot of people are excited to see some new faces in the Super Bowl. I know my wife immediately said that she was glad she didn't have to watch Tom Brady in another Super Bowl. And this is a person who doesn't even pay attention to football, but she knows that he's always in the mix. So I think for the casual fan, for the people who just basically go to the Super Bowl parties because that's just the thing to do, I think this will be a lot more enjoyable for them than in recent years. It's going to be exciting. I think, like you mentioned, the halftime show. This is one of the best looking halftime shows I've seen in quite a while. Just looking at the lineup, so that's going to be super exciting. I think this game is going to be a really exciting game. You can't really predict much when this one, because first of all, we didn't think that the Bengals would even get here, so that throws a lot of stuff out the window. And Matt Stafford, that's a guy who has spent his formative years in a dumpster fire of a team, and now finally gets the chance to see what he can do. There's a lot on the line for both of these teams, and I agree with you. I think it's going to be one of the better Super Bowls in the last decade or so, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, I am too. And I want to give a shout out and thanks to our partner, Ryan Gaskins, for putting up the poll earlier today in the Ready Break huddle over on Facebook that is basically asking, who do you think is going to win, the Bengals or the Rams? And as of right now, it's getting up there. We've got 20 votes for the Bengals and 13 for the Rams. And I want to make this interesting, because this is going to be such a superb bowl. I want to do a little contest with this poll in particular. So go out, join the group, vote, pick which team that you think is going to win. Whichever team wins in the end, I'll put everybody that voted for that team into a drawing, and we'll give them away some Ready Break swag. So that'll be your chance to get some Ready Break swag. You can, basically play with house money because it's a free vote. There
I
you
like
go.
it. I like it.
So keep voting, and we'll keep an eye on that. See who is going to be the winner of the big game and who's going to be the winner of the big swag package.
For sure.
Zach, it's amazing that we've been on here for over 23 minutes now, and we haven't talked about some of the biggest news of the entire week. And that is, it's an end of an era. Ben Roethlisberger has retired,
Man,
from the National Football League. Can you believe that?
crazy. He finally did it. After all these years, he played well after his prime, in my opinion, and I think he left it all out there, which he probably wanted to do. But just for me, I think he probably should have retired maybe 2 years ago. But I'm not the one that's playing, and I can't be in his shoes. So
What's that? I'm getting word in my headpiece that there's another quarterback that we're supposed to be talking about as that's potentially retiring right now. What? Dom Brady? Dom Trady?
AFL arena football, maybe.
Possibly. Oh, Tom Brady. Oh, the guy that everybody says is the GOAT. Yeah, is he hanging it up?
I mean, if you check Adam Schefter's Twitter, yes, but we haven't heard it from the horse's mouth just yet, which I thought was hilarious.
Yeah, no, that is funny. The world basically stopped whenever Schefter put out that tweet that said Tom Brady's retiring. I've seen tons of verified accounts saying, "Hey, it's happening. He's going." I've seen the Patriots accounts say, "Thank you, Tom." I've seen the Bucks account give like a farewell type message. If he's not retired, then he definitely is the greatest of all time at trolling people. Because I think we have all bought in hook, line, and sinker that Tom Brady has played his final game as a quarterback in the National Football League. But I think that he's waiting on one specific thing to happen before he makes his announcement. And I think he wants to be named the most valuable player, and then he'll go out. I've been thinking about it a lot. And a few years back, whenever he was with the Pats and the Pats won their 6th Super Bowl, I thought that he would retire then, go out on top as a world champion. Then whenever he said, no, I'm not coming back to New England, I'm going to go test free agency, I thought to myself, he wants to do like what Peyton Manning did, and he wants to go win a Super Bowl with another team to prove that he can do it on 2 different teams. He did it in 2 different leagues, in 2 different conferences.
Yeah.
So he did that. I thought, okay, maybe he'll retire now that he got that championship with the Bucks. Then he came back for another season. And I started to think to myself, what else is he trying to do? How else is he trying to prove that he's going out on top and he's the man? What better way to go off than to go out as the most valuable player for that year that you retire? We know that when Peyton Manning retired, he did win a Super Bowl, but he was carried in that Super Bowl by a tremendous defense.
Oh, yeah.
If Tom Brady goes out as the most valuable player in his 45, 44, however old he is, year-old season, that is something, his career is something that will never be duplicated, but that in itself is something that we will never, ever see again.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Number one, it's hard enough to compete at a high level, whenever you're at the end of your career. It's a whole nother thing to end your career as the MVP of the league. And I think he has a very good shot at getting that. Like we've said for months now, it's basically him or Aaron Rodgers. And Aaron Rodgers kind of pissed off everybody with the whole COVID vaccine thing. I think a lot of people are going to give the nod to Tom Brady because he is who he is. And I think this is a great way to end your career. I mean, you made it to the playoffs. Sure, you didn't make it to the Super Bowl again, but he's done that 900 times already, so that's nothing new for him. I completely agree. I think the golden apple that you can put on the top of his career is the fact that he was able to be the MVP of the league at his age, at the very end of his career. Man, that would be pretty insane to think about in 10, 15 years once he's been out of the game for quite a while, to look back and say this guy ran the NFL for 20 years and topped it off with an MVP. That's next level. And I think you're right. I think he's waiting for the right time to announce all of this, because I think when Shefty tweeted that out, I thought it was very strange timing. I was like, just out of nowhere, he decides he's retiring, when I think this is going to be a big deal. And I think he's going to want to, maybe have some sort of press conference, or he's going to put something out for the fans and everybody.
Yeah.
So I think the media jumped the gun on this one, but I do think it's ultimately coming at some point.
Well, a wise man and good friend of mine told me whenever that news broke, and then he was like, wait a second, I haven't announced that yet. I haven't formally done that yet. He told me it's in the media world, it's better to be first than it is to be right. And that's what a lot of these guys were doing, is they were trying to be the first to break that news.
Yeah.
The first to say, hey, I called it whenever Tom Brady retired.
Right.
So, a week from now at the NFL honors, if that's when Brady makes his speech that he's retiring, they can say, yeah, we already talked about that 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. Yeah. We covered that. We're way ahead of you. Yeah. I agree with that. And I think if you look at Schefter's Twitter, he hasn't said, this has been redacted or sorry for the whatever. He just hasn't even mentioned it, So
yeah.
I think that's just how
he got his likes and his retweets, and his name was mentioned on all of the Talking Heads shows. He just got mentioned on our show.
Right.
So, he got what he wanted. He got the media circle around him for the past 2 weeks. And I'm sure everybody out there is like, oh, I don't care. Tom Brady, get out of the league. Let somebody new win for a change. Well, you're going to see somebody new win this year anyway.
Right.
Maybe not the MVP. Still might be Tom. I did see a pretty interesting tweet from a baseball account that said, with if Tom Brady does in fact retire here and now, then he is the last pro athlete that was drafted by the Montreal Expos to retire. That's amazing.
Yeah.
There are some greats that were drafted by those Expos as well.
Yeah. Garcia Parra was drafted by them, wasn't he?
Pedro Martinez was.
Pedro was? Okay. Didn't
Garcia Parra was.
pay for them? Play for them?
Mm-mm.
Oh, I don't know where I'm getting that. Who am I thinking of? Didn't they have some sort of all-star type infielder?
I believe Vlad Guerrero Sr. played there.
Yes. Yeah, you're right. I don't know who I'm thinking of. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But yeah, talk about an end of an era. The end of anyone that was affiliated with, the Expos basically is done. And that was interesting because, NBA has Canadian teams, NHL clearly has Canadian teams, and I thought it was cool that the MLB had a Canadian team, but just wasn't meant to be, I guess, and just they obviously moved out of town. But I thought it was really cool that Montreal had a team.
I guess we just don't even acknowledge the Toronto
the
Blue Jays, do we?
I'm an idiot.
Ooh, this guy. And you're a host on a sports talk show. Can you?
Hey, I don't get paid, so it's all right.
Yeah, that's true. That would be nice if that ever happened.
Hey, if anyone out there knows anybody, holler at us.
We'll take it for sure. Anything. Let's see. I did want to give a shout out to somebody real quick. Let me see if I can find that post that somebody put up in the Rdy Brk the Huddle group. Mark Thomas, back on I guess it was the day that the Rams and Bucks played. He said, bold prediction / wishful thinking. After today's loss, Tom Brady will announce his retirement. And the Bucks lost. The Bucks lost. Tom Brady, very, very, very close. All accounts are saying that he is going to. So,
yeah,
good call on that, Mark. Good call.
Yeah, he's about 90% there. We're just kind of waiting for the confirmation, but yeah, he basically called that pretty much.
Yeah. And that's a pretty good shot in the dark. Everybody had the Bucks winning that game, and he said, "Nah, they're losing," and then Brady's going to retire.
Yeah, that was a good take.
Yep, I like it. I like whenever the average Joes in our group step up and they can knock some out of the park here and there.
For sure.
Speaking of knocking things out of the park, there was a certain MLB player that was recently inducted into the highest honors of Major League Baseball, and that is of the Hall of Fame. Of course, I'm talking about Big Papi David Ortiz of the Boston Red Sox. What did you think about that? The MLB Hall of Fame happened about a week ago tomorrow, rather. And we were both watching live, and I know we were talking about how if some things didn't happen or didn't go the way that we thought that they should, that it basically meant that the entire MLB Hall of Fame was a fraud. Do you still feel like that after you've had a chance to kind of digest what happened and unpack it a little bit?
I think it's egregious that you don't have your hit king and your home run king in your Hall of Fame. And I think
bad look.
I think it's ridiculous to give baseball writers the power to have some sort of moral high ground or whatever they want to label it as, to keep these guys out because of steroids or whatever it might be. I understand it's cheating. And I understand, it gave them an unfair advantage over other players that weren't cheating. At the same time, though, especially when it comes to Barry Bonds, it doesn't matter what drug someone could have taken. A steroid doesn't help you hit a curveball. A steroid doesn't help you determine whether or not you should swing. A steroid doesn't help you in those types of scenarios that a good baseball player has to be good at. It doesn't matter, what sort of drug you take or whatever. Those are decisions that you have to make, and muscles or whatever aren't going to do it for you. Muscles are going to help you recover. They're going to make you stronger, all that kind of stuff, which I'm sure helped him a lot. But again, there is no drug in the world that can make you hit a home run against a major league pitcher. So I think this definitely could have been handled a lot better. Absolutely, Barry Bonds should be in the Hall of Fame. If you want to put an asterisk by him, if you want to say something about his steroid use, sure, let people know that, hey, this guy's not exactly 100% legit, but he did hit all these home runs. That's fine with me. But to completely keep him out of the Hall of Fame so that in 50 years, kids don't know who Barry Bonds is, and maybe the super fans, if there are any at that point, might remember him. That's just sad to me. I think everyone in the sports world should remember who Barry Bonds is, just like everyone remembers people like Babe Ruth, Ted Williams. You know, the list goes on when it comes to baseball. Barry Bonds should be on that list. And I think the way to do that is to put him in the Hall of Fame so that people have a place to go to always remember what they did. And I just think that's completely ridiculous for a guy who did as much as he did, steroids or not, you know. It's just a terrible look.
I agree with most of what you said. I do think that it is a terrible look for the MLB Hall of Fame to not have their home run king or their hit king among the members of Hall of Famers. I think that it's unbecoming of an organization that is charged with protecting the history of the game. I do think that they need to be included, maybe with an asterisk, or maybe even a wing in the Hall of Fame that's like, hey, these are the greatest players of the steroid era.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they were tainted, maybe their stats are a little bit inflated, but you know what? We've been inflating stats on our own for the entirety of this sport. However, I was thinking about it. You know, yeah, it's great. Like guys like Pete Rose came around and they had so many hits and did so many good things in the game. But if he was inducted into the Hall of Fame back whenever, 5 years after he retired, do you think as many people would know the name Pete Rose today?
That's a very good question.
They would say, "Oh yeah, he's a legend. Oh yeah, he's a Hall of Fame baseball player." But everybody that you talk to that has any kind of, any sort of uh, love for the game of baseball, or even a for the game of baseball, they know Pete Rose and they have an opinion on whether or not he should be in the Hall of Fame. If he would have never had that cheating scandal where he was betting on the games and all that stuff and got in on his own merits, do you think he would be as famous or as popular as he is now? I really don't.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Same could be said with guys like Barry Bonds, like Roger Clemens, these guys that ultimately did get snubbed by the Hall of Fame voting committee, the Baseball Writers of America, which don't even get me started on how silly it is that baseball writers get to vote for athletes to go into a Hall of Fame. Just like it shouldn't be the same for writers to get to vote for most valuable players in the NFL. It's just, that's egregious in and of itself.
Right.
But 50 years from now, whenever people are talking about baseball, are people still going to know the name Barry Bonds because of him famously getting snubbed from the Hall of Fame when he was clearly the king of home runs? I think there's a chance that because of the snub, it's elevated his name even more. Because looking online, I see people that don't even care about baseball voicing their opinions that Barry Bonds should be in the Hall of Fame. I see people that don't even care to follow the game for 5 games a year, much less 162, talking about how Roger Clemens was one of the best pitchers of all time. And it got me thinking that maybe, just maybe, by snubbing these guys, it's done more to preserve their legacy than just putting them in on the first ballot.
That's a very interesting take, and I definitely see your point on that, and I think that very well could be. I think there's a lot of guys who, never really made much noise that did get in and are deservedly so, very, very, very talented in their own accord, that the average person, maybe a casual fan, wouldn't necessarily know too much about, simply because they weren't in the media, they weren't in the limelight, but they were a great player. Baseball fans know them, and they're in the Hall of Fame. And there's guys like the Barry Bonds of the world and people like that have made a lot of noise because of their issues and their whatever, that kind of gets them a lot more attention than it would if they just played their game and were successful. So that's a very interesting point. I think no matter what would have happened, what he did on the field can't be taken away. And I think people that were alive for that remember that, especially if you watched baseball. And now, like you said, people have opinions, even if they don't care about baseball. So that might be just the thing that kind of pushes him along, kind of like it did for Pete Rose. Obviously I never watched Pete Rose play, but I have an opinion on him, and I know about his career simply because there's always been the talk of he should be a Hall of Famer and all this stuff. So it's a very good point. I didn't necessarily consider that, but I think especially the way that people are, and we focus on the negatives a little bit more than the positives, that people might just, kind of stick this memory or this story into their heads for a lot longer than, oh yeah, Barry Bonds, the home run king, got in the Hall of Fame, as all things should be. Instead, the negative thing that happened with him not getting in is the thing that's going to stick with people, and they're going to remember that. So very possible that people could remember them more so because they didn't get in than if they were.
And that's pretty much where I can draw the line, where Pete Rose and Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens are in a different category, because with Pete Rose, he accepted a lifetime ban from baseball, knowing that would keep him out of the Hall of Fame. Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens are still eligible for the Hall of Fame if they're voted in by players now.
Right.
Now, like after that 10-year window where the baseball writers get to analyze every aspect of their life and be judges essentially over the careers of these greats. Now the players who played with them have a chance to say, hey, no, these guys are Hall of Famers. And if they say, yep, then they're going to be in the Hall. They'll be enshrined in Canton in a couple years from now. And a lot of this will be forgotten. Whereas Pete Rose, the only time I see him getting in is after he's dead.
Yeah.
I don't think any commissioner or governing body over baseball will give him the satisfaction of dying knowing that he's in the Baseball Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
I just don't see it happening.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. In your memory, is there any other baseball players that have had this type of thing happen to them where they are so excellent on the field, but because of whatever they might have done, it kept them out of something like this?
Curt Schilling.
Yeah.
Curt Schilling was never a steroid guy. He was never in any of those Mitchell reports or any of those findings where they were on steroids. He has the numbers to be a Hall of Famer. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I believe only he and Roger Clemens have 3,000 strikeouts that are not in the Hall of Fame. I mean, that's a pretty elite club of guys, and they got kept out. Clemens for the steroids, and Schilling because he can't shut up.
Right. Which is another thing too. I would think that being inducted into the Hall of Fame depends upon what you did on the field, because that's what it's, that's the whole point of it. this guy was so good at baseball that we are putting him into the Hall of Fame so that people know how good he was for X amount of years.
Yep.
I've never seen it as a moral organization or a, anything that has to do with your personal beliefs or your actions off the field, as long as they're not, hurting anyone or whatever, as long as you're not a murderer or something. I've never understood why you would keep Curt Schilling out, simply because, like you said, he doesn't shut up. He likes to talk crap online, and he does have some out there views, if you will. A lot of people like to call him alt-right or whatever you might call him. But again, I don't think it's up to the baseball writers to decide whether or not someone is morally, worthy of the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I mean, it's a completely different sport, I know, but O.J. Simpson is still in the National Football League Hall of Fame, and he's still in the Buffalo Bills Ring of Honor around their stadium.
Well, he was innocent. I don't know what you're talking about.
I mean, he was innocent of the murder charges, but he was convicted of the assault charges in Vegas that sent him away for several years. So if we're going to throw any kind of character clause after you get acquitted for a double homicide, and then you have another charge of assault with, I think, a deadly weapon was even part of that charge, maybe we have a character issue that we could talk about. But, I guess being alt-right in 2022 is more egregious than double homicide in the 90s. Whatever.
Yeah, 100%. That's the case. And that's just the way the culture is these days. God, it's such a weird thing to think about, that I don't know if they're ever going to change. Honestly, you and I have talked about it before, that we think that that the living members of the Hall of Fame should be the ones that decide. But I don't see them ever really changing it. I don't think that they have much motivation to change anything. There's plenty of people that don't like the fact that the writers have the ability to do this, but we have a lot of opinions on a lot of things that they don't seem to really care about. I think this is just one of those things that this is the way it's done, and people are content with just keeping things moving. Clearly, the writers don't want to give up that kind of power. I think that's a huge piece of power to hold. It's weird. I don't like it at all. I really don't understand it. Some people might say that, writers follow the teams and the players day in and day out. It's their job to keep up with the numbers and the stats and stuff like that. But I think players and past players could do just enough, just as good of a job of that as the writers could do. And I think the players have a perspective that baseball writers couldn't have unless they were players. So I've never understood it. And it's a shame that it has to be that way, because I think it would be a nice way of making the Hall of Fame and baseball in general more communal if the older generation gets to decide that these new guys are worthy enough to join the ranks. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. And we looked it up. There are 75 living Hall of Famers from the major leagues. So that's 75 people. That's plenty of people that can give you a, set it at, 70%, 75% of those 75 people have to agree that you're a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
There's enough people that you can get a bunch of opinions, a bunch of ideas flowing, and those people would make an informed decision on who should get in and who shouldn't, based off of baseball merits and not off of character clauses.
Right.
I do think that all of these sports have it jacked up whenever they give the media that much power. Even like things like the Heisman Trophy. Yeah, every living Heisman winner gets a vote, but there's still like 800 media members that cast their votes too.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's cool and all, but I don't know. That being said, I am very happy for David Ortiz.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I don't want to take away from that accomplishment for Big Papi, because that's huge. He is the first member of the modern Red Sox that have won World Series titles and that have been relevant in my life, at least, that went on to be a Hall of Famer. He's got 3 World Series championships with the Boston Red Sox, when previously there was 0 World Series titles for anybody in living memory. So
Right.
that's significant. Because of that, I think we'll also see guys like Dustin Pedroia get in. Maybe not first ballot like David Ortiz was, but I do think, 3, 4, 5 years down the road, you'll see Dustin Pedroia get enough votes to get in. I do think some of these other cats that have been around for a while will have the stats to get in. It's time will tell. I don't know too many standout pitchers that might, maybe, I don't know. John Lester isn't a Hall of Famer in my opinion, but who knows? He might get voted in because he's a nice guy.
Yeah, pretty much.
He battled cancer, so he put him in the Hall.
Right. I think Schilling was the guy. I think that was the guy, other than Pedro, that they should have put
Pedro,
in.
yeah.
I mean, it's clear as day. Obviously, Schilling was successful with the Diamondbacks and then successful with the Red Sox. He was an all around great starting pitcher, and just for whatever reason they thought that the moral high ground was above Curt Schilling, so he didn't get in. But whatever, we can beat that horse till it's.
Yeah, we sure can. And and as people that are talking heads, we definitely don't like the fact that those talking heads have so much power and so much control. I don't ever want to have that much responsibility or that much weight on my
Yeah.
shoulders that my opinion would keep somebody from sports glory. Because I'm not a professional athlete. I've never been a professional athlete. So for me to sit here and try to judge somebody that is a professional athlete at the highest level, I mean, we're talking Hall of Fame level.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just think it's dumb.
Yeah, it seems out of place. It seems like you shouldn't be able to do that, which I think we can all agree that it's just, it doesn't make sense. It really just does not, in my opinion. People in the media have a very good grasp on the sport. I think obviously it's their job to have a grasp on the sport, but I don't think that gives them the power to decide whether or not somebody is good enough. I just don't. It's a strange, like you said, it's power that is a bit overreaching, in my opinion. And I think maybe if you want to, divide it up 75, 25%, 75%, previous players and 25% media, whatever, because I do think there are media members out there that are exceptional at knowing stats and stuff. Bob Costas being one of those guys. I think he has a very good take on a lot of things. But I don't think that's the case for everybody. And especially when you have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of writers, not everybody is that good at their job. And I don't think as a non-player, you could have the opinion worthy enough to decide if someone's going into the Hall of Fame,
Yeah. No, I agree. And like you said, we could sit here and talk about this all night, but the fact is, anything we say, it won't matter.
Yeah.
Because guys like Rob Manfred are still running these professional sports leagues, and other people that don't care what we have to say are in charge of these Hall of Fames and in charge of how these players are elected into those Hall of Fames. So until those people are dead and gone and are replaced by people that share similar interests and have a similar point of view as us, it won't matter. So with that being said, everybody listening, go out there and try to become that guy that could be in that position that can change the world, because we have good ideas on this show. We need you to go and carry them out.
Yep, absolutely. What also drives me up the wall is just look at the laughing stock that baseball has been for the past few months. Obviously, we're in a lockout. Very little progress, if any, has been made on that. And to top it all off, the Hall of Fame has been a sham. It sucks. And we may go into NFL offseason with absolutely nothing other than baseball or basketball rather, and hockey until NFL wraps up again. If baseball doesn't get their stuff together, and that's a terrible thought.
I'll say it here and I'll say it now. If baseball goes on a strike right now, that will be the final nail in the coffin for professional baseball.
Yeah, I mean they're already teetering on a bad just way of doing things. They've toyed with certain things that people haven't liked, and it's been on a downward trajectory for a while now. And like you said, Rob Manfred is at the helm. That guy is terrible at his job. So I can only imagine the damage that not having a season or having a limited season would be.
Oh, it would. I think it would be a death blow, and maybe that's what baseball needs. Maybe baseball needs to die in the sense that we know it as now, so that it can be reborn better.
Yeah.
Get away from the way that things have been done for the past 125 years and take the good parts of the game and go forward with that and get rid of the crap.
Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it. I think you can say that for a lot of leagues, the NFL in particular. The way that football is played now is quite a bit different from the old days, 70s and 80s.
Yeah.
And it seems like baseball has kind of tried to stay traditional with the addition of a few things. The DH obviously was a big one. But maybe it's just like you said, maybe it is time for a big change, because the world is changing. People's opinions on things, people's attention span, the things that people enjoy has changed drastically. So, I mean, we are talking about a very old sport. So yeah, I mean, maybe it does need an update to try to stay relevant.
We'll see if anything ever comes of it, or if they get their stuff together and can improve the season before the spring training, which, I mean, pitchers and catchers would be set to report in weeks. So,
yeah.
All right. Well, let us know what you guys think of the MLB Hall of Fame, and if we're actually going to even have an MLB season. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. Tune back in next week whenever I'm sure we'll talk about some more Superb Bowl predictions and some things that are happening there. And maybe we'll to get into some more breaking news that happens in the world of sports. We'll see you guys next week. Ready? Break.